Well, hello 3C. We're going to talk about simple interest today to kick off our financial unit. Our goal, I can calculate simple interest on investments and savings. And I should have put and loans there too. Well, what is interest? Interest is money paid. I'm just going to read through this and I'll maybe highlight a few I'm actually going to highlight the whole thing as I read it. But I may expand on a few things. So this says interest is money paid at a particular rate in exchange for money lent. So if you borrow money from the bank, you have to pay them back a little bit more than what they actually gave you in the first place. Now, that is money that the bank has to use for their purposes. They've got lots of things that they have to pay for. They have to pay for buildings and upkeep. They have to pay for people's salary. So they have to make some money off of the transaction. Now, where did they get that money from in the first place? Well, when you deposit money into some kind of savings account at a bank or other financial institution, the bank uses that money to lend to other people. So basically, you are lending the bank your money, and they charge other people interest to use your money. So in exchange, they offer you interest so you will keep your money there. Okay. Now, they don't give as much interest as they charge other people, but it's better than nothing. Okay. So they pay you for the use of your money, and other people pay the bank for use of your money. Okay. So let's see what else this says. Now, savings accounts are where you're going to put your money to keep it for a long period of time. Savings accounts are meant as a place to store money for a long time. So banks have the use of it for a long time. Checking accounts are meant as a convenience for you to have a way to make payment transactions. So a checking account is a place where you're going to get your paycheck put, or you're going to have money come off of your checking account that pays your bills, or that you're going to write checks on it to pay your bills, things like that. So money goes in and out of a checking account so fast that the banks can't use it to lend to other people. Most checking accounts offer no interest, and the bank gets money from your transaction fees. So if you write a check, sometimes the bank usually the bank lets you write a few free checks, and then after 2 or 3 free checks, then they'll charge you, say, 50 cents a check or something like that. And those fees depend on what kind of bank account you have, and it depends on what bank you're in. But that's how how the bank earns money off of checking accounts. Now, what about interest rates? Do we know anything about them? Well, an interest rate is usually given as a percent. So you will be told that your account pays 2% interest. And so how that works, this 2% is for the year. So that's what it's stating here. It says, and when it is stated, it is usually the yearly interest rate. So what that means is 2%, if I have $100 and I put it in the bank account at 2%, at the end of the year, the bank owes me an extra 2%. I still have my $100, but I also have 2% on top of that. Now, 2% of $100 is just $2. So if I keep it in there, my $100 turns into $102 because of this 2% interest. You will see the words per annum sometimes. That means yearly. So the words per annum mean that the interest rate you're given is 2% per year. Now, simple interest is only paid on the initial money invested. It's not paid on top of any interest payments that the bank gives you. There's another interest called compound interest, and we'll be looking at that. And they do actually pay interest on top of interest that they give you. Now, here's an example. The bank account you choose has an interest rate of 2% per annum. How much money will you have after 5 years if you deposit $4,000 now? Now, I have the formula down there, but we're going to try and use common sense to start with. This says that I earn 2% per year. Well, what's 2% of my money? Well, 2% of that, if I put it over here, or if I'll put it down here, I have $4,000 and I'm going to earn 2% of that back, so 0.02. Now 2% of $4,000, let's pull up my calculator, 0.02 times 4,000 is $80. So this means that I earn $80 on top of that 4,000. So at the end of 1 year, I will have $4,080. But it tells me they're going to do that for 5 years. So since I've got $80 for 1 year, now I have to multiply by 5. And what I really have at the end of 5 years is $400. And so my total is actually going to be $4,000 that I lent them. They have to give it back to me, right? It would be pretty crappy if they didn't give it back to me. And this other $400. Okay, now we just did that sort of by common sense, but I want to show it to you with this formula here because each of these things is actually filled in down here. P stands for principal. Principal is the amount you invest in the first place, so the initial amount. Now R is rate, and it is the rate as a decimal. So when it's given to you as a percent, you have to change it into its decimal form. And T is time, and since the interest rate is always given as a year, the per annum thing, this is time in years. And you'll see that I actually filled those in down there. What did we start with to begin with? Well, we had this $4,000. That's our principal. Our rate was 2%, which is what that is as a decimal. And it was for 5 years, so the time is 5 years. And then you just do order of operation. You could actually type all of this in at once and just get $400 to begin with. Now, usually I want to see you write these 4 things down the side and fill them in so that you know what you're solving for. We wanted to know what the interest was. The principal was $4,000. The rate was 2%. And the time was 5 years. So if you fill it in here and then put it into the formula, then you definitely know what you're doing. Okay, now that's just the interest, and I told you they have to give you your $400 or your $4,000 back along with the $400. So the total amount of your investment, boy, that's moving slow. The total amount of your investment is your original $4,000, this principal, and then you got to add in what you earned in interest, which is $400. So that's $4,400 is what you have at the end of 5 years. Now example number 2. Example number 2 is an example of what happens if we don't have years. Like look at here, we've got months. So we've got 2 different things we're going to start here. So part A, let's get our formula. Interest equals principal times rate times time. The principal in this one, it says Darcy invests $12,000. So there's my principal at an interest rate of 4% per annum. How much will he have if he left it for 10 years? So let's take a look. For 10 years, we'll take the $12,000 times it by the rate, which is 0.04. Remember, I got to change it into that decimal, and the time in years is 10 years. So let's pull out my calculator. And I'm going to type in 12,000 times 0.04 times 10. $4,800. Now remember, this is just the interest. $4,800 is what I will have. And so I have to add on to that, add this onto it. So our total amount is the principal plus the interest that I made. So I take the $12,000 and I add on the $4,800. And that gives me $16,800 is what I have now. Now it says, how about if he only left it for 8 months? What's he going to get for 8 months? Well, here's the deal. I told you that T was in years. So we got to figure out how to change 8 months into years. So we got to turn it into the fraction of a year. So we still have 12,000 and we still have 0.04 as our interest rate, but this time our time is 8 months, but that's 8 out of 12 months if I want to change it into a fraction of a year. Now, how I type that into the calculator, I'm just going to type these top things in. 12,000 times 0.04 times 8, and then this means divided by 12. So you can watch me punch it into my handy dandy calculator. And I'll go 12,000 times 0.04 times 8 divided by 12. And that's $320. So if you leave it there for 8 months, they only owe you $320, and of course your total amount is going to be principal plus interest, which is $12,000 plus $320 is $12,320. Bum, bum. Next question. When you're putting time into years, you'll need to remember some key constants here. So if you're given your time period in months, you have to know that there are 12 months in a year. So you can put blank over 12. How many weeks in a year? 52. And how many days in a year? 365. I hope you know those, but if you don't, try and commit them to memory because you're going to need to know that. So for example 3, it says, what amount will you have at the end of an investment that pays 8.3% per annum, so 8.3% for the whole year, and you invest it for 180 days? Okay, so it's for the whole year. We're going to have to cut it down. So interest rate equals interest equals PRT. The principal, I don't have an amount here. So what amount will you have at the end of an investment? At the end of let's say it's a $6,500 investment. Let's just throw something in there. So the principal is $6,500. The rate is 0.083. Now, if you don't know how to get this as a decimal, the percent means by 100. So you go 8.3 and actually plug into your calculator divided by 100 if you need to. So if I was unsure, I'd go 8.3 divided by 100. And I get 0.083, which is what I used. Or you just move the decimal point back 2 places and fill in a blank with the 0. Now the time here says 180 days. So we're going to multiply by 180, but that would be 180 years if I just left it as 180. So I got to change it into a fraction of a year. So I need how many days there are in a year to change that into a fraction of a year. So 180 divided by 365. So then we just plug it in. We go this times this times this, and then divided by this. So pull this up. There's a lot of this is there. 6,500 times 0.083 times 180 divided by 365. And that is $2,660.55. So 2,660.55. And that, ladies and gentlemen, concludes this video. Bye-bye.